Oh, let me take that one headphone off. I apologize for last week. I'll be honest with you. I had a show. I had it lined up, and then I got really busy with some stuff, and I just couldn't do it. So, I ended up not being able to do it for a couple of reasons that we don't need to get into. Nothing bad. I'm okay, but all righty. So we are into the month of March, folks. Spring football is coming up soon. We're going to talk, of course, about the Missouri Tigers football team. This is a Missouri Tigers football show. But we're also going to talk about some other sports because it's springtime and it's my show. So hop on in, let people know. And we're going to go off because it's the best time of year. So thank you for tuning in to the voice of college football, Missouri Tigers. I am Zach Ramelius here like I am every Monday, except last Monday, as I just said, to talk about, Mizzou athletics today, usually Mizzou football, normally Mizzou football. This is a Mizzou football-centric podcast, centric show, but it's March 2nd. We're gonna go around the horn a little bit here in Columbia. Please subscribe to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. He's the grand poobah of all of this. Check out our website. You know, when I started here at the Voice of College Football 5 years ago, let's see, I did 2020, I did 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 6 years ago. So this will be next season will be my seventh. No, 21 was my first. I lied. I did not cover the Mac Jones team. So 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So this will be my sixth year. Second year covering Mizzou, second and a half year covering Mizzou full time. It's grown a lot. There's a lot more channels, and you can see every channel that we may have on that website. You can see who goes live on what days, at what times, who the hosts are, who our writers are. You can go to our shop. Tonight, for instance, Alabama live was earlier, Iowa, Rutgers. I'm live right now. Ohio State's got a show, Georgia, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Oregon, LSU, Colorado, Florida State, USC. And then the college football show by Mark Rogers is tonight. That's just today. We have shows that go live every day. And then we've got writers putting in work on the website. And then, of course, we also have our shop where you can go on and get yourself a hat, polo, a couple T-shirts, kind of whatever you need. And you can Mark puts up his YouTube channel stuff. We also are on your favorite audio platform, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, whatever you, however you listen to your stuff. We're here for you. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. Let's start off with talking about football. And now that it's March, we're almost into spring football. Everything is getting settled. Let's talk about the turnover on the Missouri staff. A lot of it offensively. The biggest one, though, is we do have a new offensive coordinator, Chip Lindsey. I've talked about Chip Lindsey at length. They had Kirby Moore took a different job, so there was nothing you could do about that. You had to get a new offensive coordinator. I don't know if, and we won't find out until this fall if Chip Lindsey was the guy. I thought this offseason would have been a good time to really not change how Mizzou does things, but I don't know what to say, but evolve, become more of a passing game, and involve more of a downfield threat. And under Chip Lindsey, that's just all evidence goes to it's probably not going to happen. Now, I've had Michigan people tell me, look, he actually called a pretty good games last year Bryce just didn't see it, and Bryce is a freshman, so and their receivers weren't overly talented. Mizzou has a better receiving room than last year's Michigan team. They just do. But we'll see. The run game is going to be great, but if this team's going to take any kind of step, and it's going to need more than a step because the schedule is getting a lot tougher. The pass game needs to be good, and it's been good one time in 6 years that Eli's been here. One time. It was 23. And even that was buoyed by a top 10 Heisman finisher at running back. This year, it could also be buoyed by a top 10 finisher at Heisman running back with Ahmad Hardy. But it's got to be good. But I've talked enough about Chip Lindsey in my life for now. Also on the coordinator side, Papauchis will be the Tigers special teams coordinator. You know what? I've heard this name. I listened to this because I was going to do this last week. I listened to this name all week, and I still cannot get it. But it is what it is. He will be the new Tigers special teams coordinator. Not a great year last year for Florida State special teams. But look, Eric Link has been a disaster. And Mizzou special teams have largely been a disaster since Gary left. Like you had Harrison Mevis. They've had some decent kickers. That's true. Our wide receiver room is much better. But not a great, but you had to move off Eric Link, and it's fine. He's also going to be a defensive assistant. He was the defensive end coach at Florida State, coached guys like Jared Verse. He coached the linebackers in 25. He's been a D coordinator twice. Neither time did it go really well. At North Carolina in 17-18 and Nebraska from 12 to 14. So offensively, I think this is the best hire Mizzou made. They brought in Garrett Riley to serve as quarterbacks coach. I think Garrett Riley is a really bright coach. It was not long ago Garrett Riley was the OC of a team in the national championship game. Now, on the flip side, Sonny Dykes was the head coach of a team in the national championship game, and Sonny Dykes is not a great coach. But there was a long stretch of time where Garrett Riley was viewed as like the next big thing in offensive innovation, like his brother was for so long. He was on Eli's staff at the running backs coach at App State in 2019, for what it's worth. Probably how Mizzou got an intel on him, or got like not intel, but the ability to bring him in. I think there's a real chance that what happened at Clemson the last couple of years offensively was not on Garrett Riley. It was on Dabo. Because Dabo is very stuck in his ways. I don't think anybody is confused by that. I don't think anybody really neglects that. Now, was Garrett Riley part of the problem, or was he just couldn't overcome what the problem was? We'll find out this fall. Again, Mizzou quarterback play since Eli's gotten here. One good year, some good games. Bo against Kansas last year was pretty good. Bazelak against LSU in 2020 was pretty good. Brady had a couple good games in 2022. But other than that, it's been largely crap. So it's going to be important for Mizzou to develop that quarterback room. And then Brandon Bogner was an assistant quarterbacks coach. He was the same role at Florida State. He's just coming like him and Gus. Gus Malzahn and Eli are really good friends. Eli is a Gus guy, and so it's not surprising that he brought him over after and then Gus retired. Alex Atkins will take over as the tight end coach. Durham Cato, who let me be honest, you don't ever hear about. He's the tight ends coach now at Washington State. So Alex Atkins will take over. He was the LSU tight end coach in 2025. He got let go, and Brian Kelly and their entire staff got let go. He did work with our boy from Florida State, Johnny Boy. He worked as a Florida State's offensive line coach from 2020 to 2024. Look, I think it's a fine hire as a tight ends coach. I just don't. I don't know, man. Those Florida State raw teams, and again, I'm not sure if if it was in 20. He was the Florida State offensive coordinator in 22 and 23. He got fired last year. So he's a part of that 2014. My issue with Alex Atkins, and he's a tight ends coach, so it is what it is. Those Florida State teams, and this is still true, even after the undefeated season, not a reputation as great recruiters. Did not work hard in recruiting. They were not dogged recruiters like Mario was, or even Napier. Napier was a real, you can listen to a lot of guys. Like there's a lot of great Florida State content out there. Napier was a dogged recruiter. He just could, like, Billy Napier would be a really good GM. He's a really good talent evaluator. He just can't coach. Mario, obviously, maybe next to Kirby, the hardest working recruiter in the sport. And Ryan Day's up there too. Ryan Day obviously works really, really hard. They just did not have that same level of commitment so I don't, again, Mizzou needs to take another step in development. And this year in the portal, whiffing as hard as they did, like high school is going to be the way to go in some of these cases. And I'm just not sure. On defense, Lavorne Harbin will be the new defensive line coach. Not the D-ends coach. That's still going to be Coach Ely. But he replaced Al Davis. He spent the last 5 years on Tennessee staff. 5 years, right? Let me hang on. I had his page pulled up. Yes, 5 years. He was the outside linebackers coach. He's kind of been all over the place. They brought in a new linebackers coach, Derek Nicholson, last year, but he's also now going to add co-defensive coordinator, kind of taking some of the responsibility off Corey. Corey's obviously still going to call plays. And then Brian Early still going to be the pass rush specialist and the D-ends coach. So that's the new coaching staff. I think there's a lot of good here. It's good that you've had guys that have been OCs, been coordinators, been at different spots all over your staff now. Don't love some of the hires. I'm not a huge fan of bringing in Florida State guys. I think Mizzou needs to work harder in recruiting, and those guys just did not work hard in recruiting. So we'll see. But it's a lot of turnover. Like, it was obvious last year was not a good year for Mizzou overall. Look, 8-5, and you beat one bowl team, and the bowl team was Louisiana. I'm not going to get mad over 8 wins at Mizzou. Like, that's crazy. But they left a lot of meat on the bone, and it's very clear Eli went in. Gosh, you can tell my throat's being weird tonight. That Eli went in needing to evolve. Now we'll see what happens with Chip. Chip's the biggest hire of Eli's career, because if Chip works out, you have a chance to be really freaking good, and now a place where players know they can come in and put up numbers offensively, where at like wide receiver positions, quarterback positions, because one of the hardest things Mizzou's had issues with is they just haven't gotten their guy. Bazelak was already on the roster. Sean Robinson came in, like, whatever. And Bazelak in 21 was always going to be the starter. Didn't work out. 22, they tried in the portal and they whiffed, and they ended up with Jack Abraham, who stunk. And then 23, they're like, okay, we'll need a guy to compete against Cook. And then they brought in Jake Garcia, who, again, just not good. And then they whiffed. And they brought in Bo, and they just whiffed on. They wanted Miller Moss. And honestly, like, Bo probably wouldn't have been much different. They tried with Mendoza. Obviously, Mendoza goes to Indiana. They bring in Bo. Bo was really good for a few games. You saw the struggles start to pop up against UMass, and then everything kind of happened after that point. God, Duke is the best team in the country. So, look, they brought in the guy that they brought in Austin Simmons. I've said this 1,000 times. Like, Austin Simmons, as soon as Austin Simmons was going to be made available in the portal, that was their guy. So it's going to be up to Chip and Garrett to really establish that. But I just wanted to go over some of the coaching staff turnover. The other football topic I wanted to talk about was at the Combine. Apparently, Mizzou guys kind of killed it. I'm not a weirdo. I'm not watching the Combine. If you do, more power to you. I'm not going to do that. I don't have the time of day to watch kids run, especially when there's so much basketball on and there's movies and YouTube and everything that like makes entertainment great. And I just didn't watch. It's like the draft. Like I'm not going to watch the draft, the NFL draft. I will like when Zion Young goes in the first round, I'll be very happy for Zion, but I'm just not going to watch it because I'm going to get the alert on Twitter and I can spend my time watching something else that is productive to my time. Or I can watch, like, let's see, it'll be April 15th. So, like, the NHL playoffs will be ramping up, or the NBA playoffs, or there'll be regular season games in baseball. I mean, I'm not going to watch I might watch the Cardinals. I'm actually kind of excited for the Cardinals now that they've decided that, like, hey, maybe trying to win 84 games and go on a once-in-a-lifetime run maybe isn't the move, which is cool. Like I'm happy for them. It took them a decade, but nonetheless, yeah, more than about a decade. Like 2016 is kind of where once the Cubs kind of ended that era of the Cardinals. Once Kyle Schwarber put a ball on the roof. Lordy, poor Kevin Seagrass, man. Mike Matheny killed his arm. Never forget, speaking of the Cardinals, why I'm pulling this up because it's taking a second to load. Never forget that the Cubs won the World Series, and the next day the Cubs were like, well, you can do that. We're going to extend Mike Matheny. God, what a freaking – what an era. What an era. But anyway, this isn't to talk about the Cardinals. I don't care that much. Josiah Trotter did the most reps on bench press out of any linebacker. This is all courtesy of Power Mizzou. His NFL.com, his prospect grade is 6.35, which projects him as an eventual plus starter at the NFL level. We'll see. Trotter, on the football side, one of the better one-year starters we've seen at Mizzou, and we've had some good ones. But he came in, and I didn't expect him to be as good as he was. I kind of thought he'd be the starter. Everyone thought he'd be the starter with Newsom and Rodriguez, and I thought Beasley would get a little more playing time. Obviously, Khalil Jacobs was there. He came in, and he dominated from day one. He has trouble with pass coverage. No, he didn't. He was really, really good. Chris McClellan had a nice day. Chris McClellan is probably the player Mizzou's going to have the hardest time replacing this year, if I'm being perfectly honest. Like more than Damon, more than Zion. He prospect grade of 5.98. So NFL.com kind of projects him as like a rotational defensive tackle. Hey, that's fine. Zion Young didn't do any of like measurable testing. He participated in some positional drills. He apparently, according to Matt Miller, he showed out. He's a big body athlete. He's quickness. A lot of people still have him as a round one pick. NFL.com 6.4 projects him to be a good NFL starter in a couple of years. Toriano Pride, wonderfully. This was weird to me. The sixth fastest time at the 40. He ran a 4.32. Whenever you heard about like the speed on last year's Mizzou team, you never really had that. Never really had him as like you never heard about him as a burner. He was a freaking burner? Are you kidding me? And he's got decent size. Like I think there's a chance he could become an NFL player, like a rotational NFL player, which is kind of what NFL.com. And then Kevin Coleman, same thing. He had a nice little workout. Again, NFL.com kind of projects him to be, like a third, fourth wide receiver, which, hey, man, that's a career. The only other guy is Keegan Trost, and Keegan Trost, I think, showed the most out of anybody last year. He's another one. Him and Trotter and Trost, two of the better one-year starters in Mizzou history. He got a 6.19, so that projects him as a good backup. They could develop into a star. Offensive linemen do take a little longer, and he is fairly old. Good Lord, putting the freaking beat down at NC State. But so these Mizzou guys, hey, they showed out, man. Good for them. You got to be happy for them. You got to be happy. That's about all the football really to get into right now. We went over the coaching staff. We went over some of the other stuff. So let's go ahead and hit our other Mizzou sports roundtable. We're going to get into basketball because it's March, so I think it's okay to talk a little basketball right here. But let's get into the fact that, look, I have said for years, and I still do believe this. This has not changed my opinion. Mizzou should abandon baseball. They should abandon baseball. They cannot compete at this level in baseball. They couldn't compete in the Big 12. And now, like, as dominant as like the SEC was in like football for a long time and basketball last year, baseball, they're unbelievable. They're unbelievable baseball, the SEC. Mizzou can't compete. It's like asking a D2 team to compete in the MLB. Like, yeah, they'll get some win, or like a AAA team. D2, good Lord. It's like a AAA team asking them to compete in professional baseball. Like, yeah, they might get some wins. You know, they'll compete sometimes, but you can't ask them over to compete at a high level. It's just not going to happen. But credit to Mizzou. They're 10-2. They've won 8 in a row. They haven't played anybody. They beat North Dakota. They swept North Dakota State. Look, my school was in the Summit League. North Dakota State baseball, like they're fine. Oral Roberts was kind of the class of that league when I was there. They got UIC. I mean, there's a chance if you can sweep them and beat Southern Indiana, you're 15-2 heading into conference play, and you go to Auburn. But here comes the issue. Number 9 Auburn, number 13 Tennessee, number 24 Texas A&M, number 18 Kentucky, South Carolina stinks. That's a series you can win. Number 21 Oklahoma, number 8 Arkansas, number 14 Georgia, Vandy, not ranked according to Mizzou's website, and then number 3 Texas. Like, ranked team. So that's kind of sucks for Mizzou baseball. But hey, good for Carrick. Even if they can even bat, if they can get 10 conference wins, man, like, okay, like that's all right. There's something there. Mizzou softball, boy, that at one point the torchbearer for Mizzou athletics is now 7-13. And probably going to miss the tournament and probably going to need a new coach in a few months, or 2 months, I guess. That Duke kid just shoved that guy to the ground. Good on him. I hate Will Wade. I don't have audio on, obviously, so I can't hear whistles. And I heard I thought there was a travel. But just not in a good spot is the old Missouri Tiger softball team. But getting of all that, let's talk 15 minutes on Mizzou hoops. I know we're here for football talk, but it's my show. I want to talk a little basketball today because there is a lot to talk about. And we're going to talk basketball throughout the month. As football gets into the spring season, again, we're not doing a spring game, like a real spring game. There'll be a lot to talk about with basketball, a lot to talk about still with football, and we'll get there. But I did a lot of fun things last year, like my ranking every Mizzou season of my lifetime, things like that. I'm not going to do that 2 years in a row. So, but Mizzou basketball. I'll take you back to before Christmas. Mizzou loses 91-48 to Illinois, their second biggest rival in the sport. I wanted Dennis fired. Dennis Gates, the head basketball coach. I thought this team was terrible. I thought we are not doing this every other year crap where you're pretty good. They got a 7 seed his first year, a 6 seed last year, and then you're awful. And then you're pretty good again, and then you're awful. Like, we're not doing this again. And then they went out and beat Florida. They went out and got a win over at Kentucky, and those wins kind of buoyed them for a little while. Like, well, if they go on a streak, but then they lose by like 17 to Texas on Valentine's Day. And I thought, okay, their season is over, because that Texas game was a must win in my eyes at the time, because I did not think they would get some of the wins that they have gotten since then. But since then, since they got beat by Texas, they beat Vanderbilt. They look, metrics matter and margins matter, and they didn't get killed by Arkansas on the road. They beat Tennessee. They beat the crap out of Mississippi State, and even before that, they had a nice win over Mississippi State. They beat not nice Mississippi State Snakes. They beat South Carolina. They had a nice win on the road against Texas A&M. They did lose to Texas, but Mizzou sits here now at 20-9, 10-6 in the SEC. Not a great SEC. Last year was so good, and the reason it was so good is because everybody brought everybody back. And that includes the Tigers. They brought back Tamar Bates. They brought back Caleb Grill. They brought back Ant and Pierce and some of these guys that took steps. And then you add Mark Mitchell, and all of a sudden you take off. And at one point, you're a top 15 team in the country. You fell apart at the end, and this year's been the opposite. I think they're playing their best basketball right now. We'll see. They have a big one tomorrow against OU. Can't lose it. But this has been an unbelievable coaching job by Dennis Gates. And I think it's weird to me that there's such a warring faction in Mizzou athletics fans, that like Eli is this untouchable figure to a lot of fans. And look, Eli's really good. I'm going to say some things, and people, if you misconstrue this as I don't like Eli, you're wrong. I really like Eli. I wish there was things that would change and Mizzou would be better at, but I wish the same thing about Dennis Gates. Eli's had one great season at Mizzou, one really good season. The last year was okay. Like, it was fine. And then 3 really mediocre seasons to start his tenure. If you want to knock out 2020 because of COVID, fine. 2 mediocre seasons. I think Dennis has had 2 good seasons, one god-awful season, and this season's kind of like this year for bat football. We'll see what happens in the tournament. I don't take the tournament as like the end-all, be-all. You win, you lose. Rick Barnes is an unbelievable coach at Tennessee, and he made one Final Four. He made the Final Four in like 2002, 2003, and hasn't made it back. And we're still like, no, Rick Barnes is awesome. Shut up. You know, when was Calipari's last Final Four? I believe it was. I don't think he's made the Final Four since the Anthony Davis team. Not the Anthony Davis team, excuse me, the Karl Anthony Towns team. I'm trying to think, because the next year they made the Elite Eight with Monk and Fox. You know, name another great coach. It's not like Todd Golden or Dan Hurley. You know, Tom Izzo. When's the last time they made the Final Four? 2019? And Tom Izzo's like Mr. March. And he is. You know, he always does an unbelievable job. It's hard, man, to win in the tournament. And so I don't take, like, tournament losses. They suck. But I don't, like, take that as, like, give me 2012 every year forever. Like, that year for Mizzou basketball was so much fun. They lost to Norfolk State, but they went 30-5. Are you telling me I didn't have fun watching that because they lost to Norfolk State? God, it's amazing that one school's lost to a 15 seed twice in Mizzou. What did we do? But the tournament is an important thing to make. And based off the decade of darkness that – so it's just weird to me how, like, Dennis gets crucified for, like, every loss, and Eli, it's like, yeah, I know we should have beaten Bama or should have beaten Vanderbilt, or I know we just scored 3 points against Vanderbilt or 6 points against Oklahoma, but, like, Drink's amazing. Dennis lost a game. We probably need to get a new basketball coach. And I think a lot of it stems from no one wanted Dennis to be the guy. They all wanted it to be Kim English, and Kim English stinks. Really good Mizzou basketball player, great alumni. He stinks. Providence is terrible. Anyway, but after Mizzou lost to Norfolk State, And if you have football people in here, I'm just after Mizzou basketball lost to Norfolk State. That was the year 4 of a 5-year run where they made the tournament every year. They made it out of the first weekend once. They've made it out of the first weekend twice since 2000. Mizzou has a long, proud basketball tradition. It rarely equates into tournament success. They've made a couple Elite Eights. They're more known for their devastating tournament losses than the good wins. They made the Elite Eight in 2008, 2009, and thought maybe this is a new era. And then they lost in the second round the next year, the first round the next year. Had this amazing year and then lose in the first round. And then the next year, the first year in the SEC, kind of ho-hum. They were fine. They were a lot like this year's team, where they were fine. Like overall, they were fine. Lost in the first round to Colorado State. Colton Iverson. There's a name for you. Then missed the tournament. 3 years under Kim Anderson. 3 of the worst teams Mizzou basketball has ever seen. As bad as the 0-19 team was, and they weren't as bad as those Kim Anderson teams. And then Kwanzaa came, and you had the year with Michael Porter. Michael Porter gets hurt in a preseason thing. But that team is mostly pretty solid. Went on a nice little run in the middle of the season, picking up wins over like Mississippi State, Texas A&M. Got a win over Bama on the road. Made the tournament. We're in the 8-9 game against Florida State. Jordan Barnett, one of the team's leading scorers, is an idiot. Gets a DUI, gets suspended. Mizzou loses by like 16 to Florida State. And Michael Porter played in that game, and oh my God, it was the saddest thing I've ever seen. Like he couldn't jump. He was getting stuffed by like 6'4" guys. Like it was atrocious. And then the Kwanzaa era goes on with 3 mediocre, terrible seasons where Mizzou, again, just an afterthought, laughing stock in basketball. A 500 team and overall a 5-13 type conference team. And then the COVID year, they get back into the tournament. Again, they're in the 8-9 game. Oklahoma's missing its second leading scorer, and Mizzou still finds a way to lose because it's Mizzou. That was a decade I just went through. Did I sound like I had any fun? No. There were good moments, but from where this program has been for the large part since Quinn got fired, or even a couple years before Quinn Snyder got fired, 3 tournaments in 4 years is nothing to sneeze at. It's nothing to sneeze at. It's not amazing. And look, there's going to become a point where sooner or later you got to make a second weekend run every once in a while. And for me, it's next year. Not like if they lose in the first round next year, I'll fire Dennis Gates. But you have a top 5 pick coming in, or you have a lottery pick coming in. You're going to be returning a decent amount off this team. But from where Mizzou is at, three tournaments out of 4 years, a 6 seed, which is the highest they were since 2012, and third highest since 2005. They've gotten in the tournament, and they got a 7 seed, which I think was 4th highest they've gotten since 2005. This year they're going to be in the 8-9 game, or maybe even a 10. Like it doesn't matter, but they're still going to make it. If you look at like bracket matrix, they are in every single bracket. There's 82 bracketologists, which is way too many bracketologists. They're in every bracket. They're an 8 and a couple, mostly, and then sit in the 9-10 range. But what I wanted to give light to on this year is this is the first time I think I've watched a Dennis Gates basketball team and said, oh, this team's gotten way better throughout the year. Throw away the 0-19 season. Like, look, when Ken Pomeroy himself writes an article about how you're unluckiest team in college basketball history, like you played a dozen close games and lost them all. Like that just shouldn't happen. That's just not how the sport works. But this is the first time I can say, like, oh, the team's gotten better, like a lot better. You know, we're seeing development from T.O. Barrett and Trent Burns and Ant Robinson. After a nice start to the season, kind of fell apart and has now turned it back on. And he's become a really good backup ball handler and sharpshooter. Trent Pierce has really emerged as a fantastic wing option, and he did a great job on Nate Ament in Columbia last week. Sean Phillips. Now that Trent Burns has emerged and Sean Phillips isn't being asked to do more than what he can do. And I've talked a lot of crap on Sean Phillips, but Sean Phillips has been really, really good over the last couple of weeks. And then Mark Mitchell's been Mark Mitchell. You're seeing a team that's come together and they're going to make the tournament. They're not going to go on a run. If the perfect weird things happen in the tournament, but I'm not looking at the 2 seeds going, oh, Mizzou's going to beat this team or this team or this team. No. Get in the tournament, win a game, and just keep stacking tournament appearances if you're the Missouri Tigers. That's what you have to do. I love this. I love this football. I always tell people, Mizzou football is my number one team. I love Mizzou football. And part of it's because I love football. Who doesn't love football? If you're watching this, you love football. But number 2 is always going to be the Blues. I love hockey. And then 3 it kind of rotates, but more often than not, it's Mizzou basketball. There's nothing more fun in sports than when your college basketball team is good, because the season is shorter than the NBA, which I love the Phoenix Suns, or the MLB. I was a huge Cardinals fan for a long time. I still am, just kind of waiting for them to get their crap together and figure out what they are as an organization. But when your college basketball team is good, it's a 5 month, it's 5 months, twice a week. Yeah, October, November, December, January, February, 6 months, twice a week. It's fun. And then you get into March, and before it gets ruined, because it's going to get ruined because everything gets ruined, the NCAA tournament is still the best sports tournament we have that comes out on a yearly basis. The World Cup is still the best sporting event, that happens because the World Cup's just awesome. I'm sorry. But it's better than it's Stanley Cup playoffs, because the Stanley Cup playoffs, Gary Bettman over the NHL is determined to get rivalries. We need this divisional format, despite the fact that the Stars and the Wild are going to play in the first round, despite them being the second and third best team in the league, or in the West, which is ridiculous. Baseball playoffs are fun, but the wild cards just kind of diluted everything. It's a sprint to the NCAA tournament, and you get to the tournament, and it's just, okay, this is going to be incredible. And the tournament never fails to deliver. Last year's tournament, a little disappointing, but we're going to try and ruin it, because we got to expand so we can try and get 16 and 15 Auburn in the tournament, because Bruce Pearl retired and made his kid the coach. And now he's going to go on CBS and parade around that, we need Auburn in the tournament over undefeated Miami of Ohio. See a couple people joined up. We did some football talk earlier, just kind of talking about some college basketball, how it relates to Mizzou, because Mizzou, barring something crazy, is going to make the tournament for the 3rd time in 4 years. And Dennis Gates has done an unbelievable job this year, developing guys like T.O. Barrett, developing Trent Burns, now that the big thing with the Trent Burns thing too is Sean Phillips doesn't have to do more than he can. He doesn't have to play 27 minutes. He's more of a 20 minutes guy, 18 minutes. And in those minutes, he can go a little bit harder. He can be more productive. He can, and he has been. He was great against Mississippi State. So was Burns. And now you're also building a nucleus for next year of Burns, T.O. Barrett, who I didn't think he'd be the best player out of that recruiting class, but Boateng keeps getting hurt. Marcus Allen, God bless him, dealing with I believe cancer. And Peyton Marshall is barely playing on a bad Georgia Tech team. So a terrible Georgia Tech team, as in worst Power 5 team on Ken Palm, Georgia Tech team. But T.O., full credit for Dennis for that. And full credit to T.O. with Jason Crow next year. If T.O. gets in the gym and shoots a billion threes, Mizzou's going to be in really good shape next year on the backcourt. But man, what a fun basketball season! But there's just nothing better when you're your basketball team's good and hunting for March. There's just nothing better. It's a shorter season than the NHL. It's a shorter season than professional baseball, if that's your thing. It's just a race to make the best tournament in the world. And the wonderful thing about the NCAA tournament is look, I just said 5 minutes ago, I don't think Mizzou's going to go on a run, but crazier things have happened Florida Atlantic was a shot away from playing for a natty. Weird things happen in this goofy sport. So we'll talk more Mizzou basketball. Next Monday we'll talk about like their conference tournament and whatnot, because that's all next week, and how they did against Arkansas and like what they're projecting. But right now, look, man, if you're a Mizzou athletics fan, at least in the two big sports, you have to be at least happy with where they're at least content. Like Mizzou football is in a really good spot. Mizzou basketball is in a really good spot, led by two good coaches. Not amazing, a lot of flaws, but they're two good coaches who should be here for a while. And you just have to be happy with that. So if you're not, you're kind of a loser. Anyway, follow me on Twitter at PsychoZ50. Like and subscribe, guys. We'll do more Mizzou football talk next week. We'll do more basketball talk, and we'll kind of see what the baseball team's doing. Did they sweep this weekend and potentially move to 15-2, which would be, shoot, how many wins did they have last year? Let's play the game. I think they won 10 games last year. 2025, they won 16 games last year. So they would need to go 1-37, which I don't think they're going to do, to match last year's record. I mean, last year they were losing games to They lost to Alabama State. Dear God. Stetson, Alabama State, Evansville lost the series, or took split against Binghamton. I can never pronounce that one. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll be back next week, and we'll talk more Mizzou football, more Mizzou basketball, more Mizzou sports. This is Missouri Tigers Live. Again, I'm Zach Ramilius. Go ahead, hit our website up. You can find everything you want to there. Subscribe to Mark Rogers TV. He is the voice of college football. Like and subscribe, and I will see you all next week. MIZZOU, go Tigers, and hey, basketball team, let's finish this strong, man.